I work as a ranger in one of the most haunted parks in America. When I graduated high school, I had few options, no money for college, and no trades or skills. But the national forest nearby was desperate for park rangers and willing to hire immediately. Little did I know what I was getting into when I accepted the job. This all occurred a few years ago, and it made me seriously reconsider my line of work. The first week I was there, I came across a cabin that was not on any map. It nearly blended in with the pines and oaks around it, being made of logs stacked on each other with no windows and only a single door. I circled around it, disturbed by what appeared to be drops of blood emanating out from the door in a fan-like pattern. But I disregarded it, assuming this must be some hunter's cabin and that the blood was likely from a deer. I opened the door and, to my horror, found the blood was not from a deer at all. There were multiple human corpses hanging from the ceiling, some cut down the middle with their guts taken out as if done by a hunter prepping a buck. The floor was covered in what appeared to be human skin, stretched out into a macabre carpet in front of the fireplace. On the table were cups made from human skulls, and the smell was so overwhelmingly rotten that I immediately turned to the side and vomited up my late lunch. As I composed myself and looked back inside, I realized with growing horror that the madman who had done all this was sitting in a chair with a shotgun in his mouth. His eyes followed me as I sprinted away, and I heard the gun go off a couple seconds later. I hid behind a tree 100 feet or so from the cabin, shakily raising my walkie-talkie to my trembling lips. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaking badly. "I need immediate backup on the deer trail behind the graffitied rock on Windermere Lake. We have multiple fatalities by homicide, I repeat, multiple fatalities. And I believe we may also have a suicide. We need police in the area as soon as possible." A voice came in over the radio. "Get out of there, Ranger," hissed a deep, guttural voice. "Get out of there and never come back. That cabin is for the sinners, those who worship the dead stars, those who have offered their lives to the ancient ones." The walkie-talkie then stopped working and turned into pure static. But I heard the same voice approaching from behind me. I frantically reached into my pocket for my bear mace and folding knife. The bear mace seemed like such a pitiful tool as I held it in my hand and heard someone drawing closer, dragging their legs through the twigs and leaves on the autumn forest floor. Now I heard the same voice, but instead of coming through my walkie-talkie, it was coming from directly in front of me. "You are not one who sees the lights from the dying stars, or one who would trade your life for the knowledge of that light. So run, while you still have the chance." Behind the tree, I saw the man who had killed himself approaching. The entire top of his head was gone, though his jaw and lips were still intact. Blood poured from out of his nose and covered his eyes like red tears. It was impossible that he could still be alive, less likely walking and talking like he was. But he stood there, 10 feet away in his camo jacket and khakis, looking paler than a maggot writhing in the sunlight. As I watched him, shaking with horror, and unintentionally dropping my walkie-talkie, he fell to the forest floor and ceased moving, turning back into a regular faceless corpse. My walkie-talkie started working normally again, and I immediately called the crime scene into the ranger station. They had SWAT and helicopters on the way within minutes, and I vacated the premises as fast as possible. And that was just my first week. Things got a lot weirder after that. His name was Ron Gutierrez, the head ranger Antonio Brown told me later in his office. A multiple felon, convicted sex offender. Disappeared from parole a couple months ago. I think the feds put out a warrant for him, interstate evasion or something. But it didn't do any good. He was never suspected of murder, at least as far as the state troopers seemed to think. But clearly our old buddy Ron was up to a lot more than the police thought. There were parts of at least 4 bodies in that cabin you found. He shook his head in disgust, his large mustache and huge belly making him look like an agitated walrus as he did so. "This is going to be a media cluster. I can tell you that right now. I seriously doubt 4 is the final number of his victim tally. That means the FBI will be arriving too, as is usual protocol with serial killer investigations. They're going to want to see if there were more victims from other states." "I just want to go home," I said, and it was true. I hadn't slept the night before, and I kept seeing the dead man's face, hovering before me in the dark. And I wondered about that voice, that horrible voice. Was it a delusion, or stress. It had to be. "Listen, Cal," the head ranger said, putting his hand on my shoulder. "I feel for you, I really do. But we're understaffed, as you know. I can give you the rest of today off, but I need you back tomorrow. Don't let stuff like this ride you. Just forget it. Go have a beer, or shoot some guns, or whatever you do to blow off steam. But don't let that madman ruin your life too. He already ruined enough others." "Thanks, Antonio," I said, forming a feeble smile. My stomach hurt, and my heart was racing, and I just wanted to go home and lay down. I had no idea at the time, but things were about to get much, much worse. I went home and turned off the lights and lay down in the dark. The sun was still out, but I had the thick curtains closed. My wife came home from work a couple hours later and found me staring at the ceiling. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. "If I started going crazy," I asked her, "would you want to know?" She smiled, amused. "Yeah, sure," she said. "I'm hoping I'd be the first person you'd tell. Why? Is there something you want to tell me?" "Nope," I said, laughing a little. She always cheered me up. I fell asleep soon after and awoke to a ringing telephone in the dark room by myself. "Hello?" I said, rising. "Cal, this is Antonio," he said. "The police are on their way. Now listen. I'm here with the FBI, and they found evidence. Well, they think our buddy Ron had an accomplice. Maybe more than one, I don't know. Are you okay?" "Hold on," I said, dropping the phone quickly. I got to my feet, a surge of adrenaline waking me fully as his words sunk into my consciousness. "Stacy?" I cried, moving from room to room. I got no reply. "Are you here? Please answer me. Now." The house stayed as silent as a corpse. As I got downstairs, I found the front door wide open, the light from the street lamps flooding inside. But my wife was nowhere to be found. She was gone.